Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Pick it up next week. I have recently been forced to conceptualize the notion of conspiracy in such magnanimous proportion, it eclipses in its all-encompassing shadow all other mind-blowing, universal, altering revelation in effectual truth as far as what it means for world. And though I am far from resolving its deeply profound riddle, as possibility, it has destroyed my foundational truth when it comes to astronomical insight and cosmological understanding on the motion and formulation of celestial entities, stars, planets, mechanic structure and construct. Having studied astronomy as my science in college, I believe myself to have had a better grasp of heavenly motion, according to most. And yet my knowledge on the interaction of the Earth with the other objects of our solar and universal system has been diffused so completely, I am now in quandary, unable to entertain other focus. Similarly, to the day after I awoke to the conspiracy of 9/11 and government-sponsored truth, terror, I am in need of model which would sufficiently replace in explanation my observation and imagination of how things daily unfold around me as world. And like my cats, when I moved to a new residence, having disrupted all they knew as house and living space since their entrance into the world as kittens, I am exploring new boundary and limitation in hopes of bringing sense to the newness of situation in determining the specificity of location which best enables my ability to facilitate survival in both a mental as well as physical sense. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia, and this is Momentary Zen. I thank those of you that have joined us here in chat for taking the time to do so. And as the opening poem states, I am on the fence as to the whole flat earth versus round earth model. And having looked into it for the past 2 weeks now, almost all of my available free time, having listened to various videos and various speakers talking about it as possibility, as well as the account of philosophers and different individuals, their connections to secret society and Masonic brotherhoods, And then also the other side of it, as far as NASA and their purposeful deception, which led me to reassess what I thought as far as the Apollo moon missions and the perspective of the Earth from an orbital or a moon, a viewing from the moon or high altitude as far as being away. It's I am definitely confused, to say the least. And I want to thank all of you in the chat room, those of you that did call in initially when this came up over the course of, I'd say, about a month now. A lot of my listeners and a lot of you have written to me and have asked me to look into this as postulation. And I was, to be honest, I was more than hesitant. And like many individuals that have recently done shows on this information, I was very reluctant to even dedicate any amount of time to the study of it. I considered it beyond lunatic fringe and something that could be easily passed off as just, just as I said, insanity. And in that it wouldn't even take a lot of time to do so, that all of the speculation surrounding it would, as a model, would be easily dismantled. Especially for myself, as I said in the poem, having spent 3 years studying astronomy rather than take, some kind of biology or physics or chemistry or something of that nature, that I dedicated my time and my evenings, as far as our, the projects that we had to do, going to observatories and looking at planets and systems and stars and things like that through high-powered telescopes. And I considered myself to be very fortunate, because Georgia State, where I spent the first 2 years of my college education, had a remarkable astronomy program, one of the best in the Southeast. And so I consider myself blessed and fortunate to be able to study the something of a difference. And just so you know, Doc Who and Cortec and all my friends in the chat room, Mr. Rowe, I'm not 100%. But I have still many questions, but I am finding out that there is something to it. And I would challenge you to also spend some time actually looking into it as possibility, because I was just like you. When somebody mentioned flat Earth or flat Earth Society, I just rolled my eyes. I didn't even want to listen to what they had to say. I didn't even consider it. As far as the spectrum of conspiracy, I didn't even consider it to have an ample, a small percentage of truth. And yet, here I am, confused and trying to make sense of the um, of those things which don't make sense in the global model. And so, I'm going to invite you to call in tonight because Anthony Patch was supposed to join us this evening, but matter of fact, let me go ahead and post that into the chat for those of you that have access. Just wanted to let you know. And many of you, since you are so very well researched and well studied, know that Anthony Patch is one of the foremost authorities on CERN and its opening as far as stargates and the physics connected to the creation of portals and the invitation, the ritual invitation of these high-level Illuminati Masonic scientists, these godless atheistic black magic scientists, in inviting these interdimensional beings and of creating portals so that those things which go bump in the night can actually make it into this realm. And so, I know, and I'm sort of like one of them now. And I know that a lot of you are laughing at me, but all those of you that have done your homework, you are, to say the least, you are convincing me. And so I'm going to continue with my study, as well as I have reached out to other individuals that are way more, a lot wiser and a lot more studied in this area that can help bring to light some of those things which I still have questions upon. Like, there are certain things that still don't make sense to me, but having listened to a lot of shows on this topic, it seems that what the Bible references as the firm earth and the foundational earth, and how the firmament and the heavens are stretched over it like a canopy, like a tent, there seems to be biblical confirmation as to the geocentricity of the universal model. And so this evening I do want to talk about some of those things, and know that I appreciate all of you, Doc and Cortec and Mr. Rowe and Breyer and all of Zaf and all those that are in the chat room that are not in the immediate scroll. You are very wise and very well researched individuals, and I learn as much from you as you are learning from me. And so for that, I just want to extend my appreciation, and to also link, thank you, a link. If you go to fallenangels.tv, www.fallenangels.tv, if you're not yet a member of our Truth Network, you can easily join, set up your own profile, and I have linked in the video section the most relevant, what I have recently found as the most relevant videos in connection to this as topic. And I've also started a discussion there for individuals that know more about this as topic, and to invite you to join that discussion group. It's the flat versus round earth model. And you can very easily, once you're part of the Truth Network, easily link videos, upload blogs, um, connect audios. It's very easy way to share information, data, and different sources in a very profound outreach, and with a lot of individuals that are very wise and very well researched, as you in the chat room. And so I want to invite all of you, those of you that are here in the chat often and that support mine and other hosts' program, to please do come to the website www.fallenangels.tv. Set up your own personal page, and I believe that you will find it an easy tool to not only keep up with my own work, because I do list all of my own shows and the various links, my guest appearances all come up there, as well as all of the current events, the news links and the RSS from those things which I find, the news feeds and the stories that I find which are connected to the topics that we cover, as far as the esoteric knowledge, the wide world of the fallen angels, giants, the seed of Cain, the Nakash, the dragon lineage, all of the things such as Mars and the elder civilizations, the prior times, anything to do with the discovery of new civilizations, pyramids at the bottoms of the oceans, all those different kinds of things. That you can also, there are many others that, not just myself, that post up news stories and share them with the community there. And so please do join us there for dialogue, for fellowship, as you do here. And my hope is that you will utilize the network as a way to reach out and to communicate with others of like mind. And you can go back through the archives all the way back to 2008. You can even keyword search the various articles, videos, the audio files. And there's a lot of information connected to all those things that I've talked about, going back to, actually, I think it was 2006 when I started fallenangels.tv, because it was 2008 that I actually started my radio and broadcasting career. And so, a lot of information there, thousands upon thousands of videos. And it's not just anything. We're not just throwing up anything. Everything that is found on the network is profound and connected to those topics which we largely cover, discuss, and talk about here. And so I hope that helps you link. Now, just to kind of set the premise for this show, also I want to let you know about, I told you the other people that would be coming on. Let me go ahead and just find a schedule as far as the other people that will be joining us, just to give you an idea. And a lot of times I try to cover in my shows the information that I don't think you would be able to find or hear from other broadcasts or other hosts. And it's only been of late that I have invited a number of these speakers on to kind of break up um, the monotony of always just having to hear me. Now, I do appreciate, those of you that like to just listen to me and the information that I share, um, and I really appreciate that you find relevance in that when I do shows like that. But I do want to break it up. I won't always have guests come on, and so we have been on a basically have had over the past 2 months. Every week we've had a different guest, and so for the next month we will have guests. Carolyn Hamlet will be joining us next week. And then Troy McLaughlin will be talking with us about the Saturn death cult. And then the week after that, Josh Peck will be joining us for Cherubim Chariots. And also he's done some shows on the Flat Earth, so I'll be able to ask him some stuff. And then my friend Wendy Cooper will be talking to us about the Mazzaroth. And then after that, hopefully I'll be able to get a couple of, learned people as far as the flat earth to continue with the discussion I'm going to be engaging in and starting tonight. And I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about what it is that I've learned in connection to this model, because that over the, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks back, the hijacker, and then we had also Mr. Rowe call in and talk to me about the flat Earth as model and the geocentric view of the universe, and the what all that entails. Because if the geocentric model is correct, and we do not live on a global or spherical planet, and we're not spinning through the earth around the sun, well, what are the repercussions of embracing that as truth? And so these are the kind of things that have been on my mind as far as the past week, especially because it's only been the past couple days that I have really entertained this as possible reality. And so, having done so and having taken the red pill and decided to go further down the rabbit hole, I've really had to think about the effectual truth of accepting this as 100% basis for reality. And in doing so, because as I said in the poem, this is the mother of all conspiracies. And if NASA and it wouldn't just be NASA and contemporary modern culture and civilization, it would also be the Sumerians, the mythology and connection to all the pagan religions worldwide, the accounts of the Sumerians having ventured from the outside in across the planetary system, and how beginning with um, Neptune and Uranus, how supposedly they encountered each one of the different planets from the outside in. All right, we've got a caller, so I'm going to go ahead and. All right. Yeah. Who's this? Are you with me? Yes, caller. Did you have a question or a comment? Okay, I'm not sure who it is, so we will.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry. Apollo, this is 630. Apollo 13 had a mission, and I don't know all these details. Forgive me, but my point here is that there was some video that they found a ship on the dark side of the moon, but I don't know if this is true. This might be almost like the flat Earth theory, it's like hard to believe. And you might have like a million people that say no, it's fake and it doesn't exist. But then you might have maybe 500,000 people that think it is true. But I don't know if you're familiar with the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, actually, I'm one of the ones that has had a chance to interview Luca Scantamburlo, which he was the one that did the direct interview, YouTube dialogue and interview with William Rutledge and also with Moonwalker Delta 1966. And he's the other confirming witness. He was supposedly the hold on, caller, and we'll pick up this on the other side of the break. We'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back. Caller, where are you calling from, and what's your name?
Mike, Chicago.
All right, hey Mike, I appreciate you taking the time to call in. And yes, I'm very familiar with this story, and I have to tell you, having done a lot of research and also having interviewed Luca myself on this particular story and the possibilities of it, I absolutely 100% believed that it was true and that there were things connected to it that can't be explained, and that Luca, I found him absolutely to be truthful and in covering his sources and talking about the different things that the possibilities of there being an Apollo 19 and Apollo 20 mission, and that the Russians in Apollo 15 prior had located and discovered that there was this cigar-shaped alien craft on the dark side of the moon. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, supposedly from the research that Luca and the information that he gleaned from being able to interview both William Rutledge as well as Moonwalker Delta 1966, who was the supposed commander of the Apollo 18 mission, is that they had discovered this craft on the dark side of the moon, and having done so, they went covert. That the remaining Apollo missions were somehow they were canceled, is what it was spoken about in the public, and that they then ascertained to work together in a joint U.S. and Soviet program, and that they had sent up this Lunikov lander, and that it gave them a homing beacon in order to find their way to this Fermini walled plain on the dark side of the moon where this supposed craft was located, and that the next missions were to land near this craft and to study it, to go into it, as well as there were two other triangular shaped craft along with this cigar shaped craft, and that there was also a city there on the dark side of the moon, and that there was one particular building called the cathedral that was 5 miles high, and that was like a temple. And that once they had arrived there and they had covertly assessed the situation and investigated not only the cigar-shaped craft, but also had found a body, what Mike spoke about as the Mona Lisa, this extra biological entity, that there's video as well of Rutledge and Alexei Leonov. He was the Russian cosmological, the astronaut that was on the part of a three-man crew, and the other member was a black woman, an astronaut named Steffi. I forget what her last name was, but that she was with the lunar module as Leonov and William Rutledge went down and did this investigation. And supposedly they found this extra biological entity, this woman that looked like an Egyptian woman, and she was wired into, had over her eyes and her third eye, that she was wired into the navigational system of the craft, one of the triangular shaped craft, and that they disengaged her from it and brought her, said that she was not dead and not alive, but that she was like in a suspended animated state, and they brought her on board the lunar module. And that's the video. They show all this strange writing, and they show her on the interior of the craft, and that they said that they were able to bring her back to the Earth, and that after that she was, taken somewhere, and that this footage was leaked. But let me give you a chance to comment on it, Mike. What do you think about it, and have you done much investigation on it, and what's your opinion about it?
Well, when I saw it, I was amazed, and I felt, how you get these feelings that it was real, and the writing, I don't know if they were suicide notes, but I don't think, though they may have wrote those notes, and they knew that they were in trouble, and had to abandon the mission. And the writing was amazing. It was so amazing. It's nothing like we write here, as humans and stuff like that. Another thing, she had tattoos that seemed to have had, significance of transistors, that were tattooed onto her leg. And, I found that quite interesting. And then also I was amazed at the being wired in and the possibility of her third eye. Also, her skin was very thick, and it was it seemed to have been created to last maybe 1,000 years. I'm not sure. So there was a lot of details. She was very beautiful also. And you filled me in that she was Egyptian. So the whole thing was remarkable. But again, we're getting back to this, do you accept this as a possibility? Or, I mean, it just, you should remain open, definitely. But I can almost see our future, going in these directions, with transistors and being wired in, that term that you used, wired in, because everybody looks at their cell phone now, and they have a very short attention span. They're not, right. They don't even want to be a part of this world anymore. They want to be like wired in, like you said.
Right.
They want to be wired in, and they don't even want to be here, I think, but that's another topic for discussion. And why don't you go ahead and comment on what I said? And I got 2 more points for you, and then we'll move on.
Sure. Another thing that I thought was of interest was the clothing that she had on and how it looked like circuitry, and that it had a material, like a metallic quality, which gave it the ability to be almost like they're talking about creating these invisible cloaks. They're using this nanotechnology, which gives the wearer the ability to bend light and to disappear from view, and the technology that they're utilizing for this. And another thing that Luca talked about from what he learned from William Rutledge was that the reason that they remained so hush hush on the Roswell crash and the what they had discovered, and the craft, and not only the bodies that they had found there, is and that they were able to gain the computer technology that we have now, even the internet, the transistor, and fiber optics, things, really high technology, uh, night vision goggles, or the ability to see through night with night vision. All of that technology was gleaned from the crafts that they, and the different physical objects that were part of the crashed vehicles. But he said that one of the things they didn't tell us, and the reason that they were so quietive on it, is that they also found human body parts in the craft, and that these particular beings were feeding off humans, as well as like the cattle the cattle mutilations and those kind of things. But anyways, and so some of that technology is what led us to where we are now. And yeah, I think about those people that are walking in the malls and they're just trying to text, or that their focus is completely on their phones, and how they'll walk right into the fountain or walk right into the wall. It's like they can't disengage from their technology and from their devices, iPads or iPhones or whatever. And how, yeah, it seems that we are moving towards that. And how scientists are talking about the artificial intelligence, these computers, and how they want to merge like cyborgs. They want to merge the technology, like, with Google Glass, we have it embedded into sunglasses, and now the Apple phone, the wristwatches, the Apple watches. And so, but eventually they want to put chips inside of people so that they can utilize that technology to hold data, and to embed these kind of things into the human body and have us be cyborg like. And so, and as far as the Apollo in 19 and 20 missions, my whole thing before that was that there was a public face to the NASA, as far as the technology and using rockets. But I do believe that they have anti-gravitational devices, and that there's a whole other secret space program that we're not privy to, that has greater capacity and is far more advanced in technology and ability than we can even imagine. And so how all that plays into, with if the possibility that, if it is a flat earth and the geocentric model, how does all that play out? And so I'm still confused and still trying to figure all that out, because I have also learned that, the initial Apollo programs, that they tried to fake the appearance of a round earth, and that there was, and that they were a lot farther away from the earth and closer to the moon than they actually were. And then the whole other things with the Van Allen radiation belts. I mean, I'm just really confused as to what is truth, what is reality, and what isn't. And so I'm in the process of trying um, to to separate what is real and what isn't. All right, let me get you to comment on that, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The Bob Lazar was working at Area 51. Supposedly,
Right.
everything is supposed. But when he was working on one of the craft, he was going down into the engine area, and where they were. Well, I don't know what they're called. The thrust, whatever. Let's just call them engines or right now. But there was a passageway, and it had like some type of a mesh honeycomb material that you pushed on, and it collapsed in on itself. And he had no idea what that was, because he had to do, that's how he had to enter the area down there and into the power plant area. And he didn't understand, but he knew it would have been useful if we had that technology, you know. So yeah, I mean, there's like all this cool technology that I'm sure the powers, the Army and Navy and so forth and so on, if they get a hold of this stuff, they want to study it and back engineer it. I'm sure, you know, there's no doubt about it. Real quick, I just wanted to make 2 points here. You know, since I had you, I'm really happy that you're here. I haven't heard you in a while. And this is great. You got your own show. But the fallen angels, I'd like to mention that I believe in the fallen angels. I do. But on the other hand, I believe these angels quite possibly may want human bodies to take over but they can only do that with people that are in chaos and stupidity. And I wanted to get your opinion on that, whereas it's sort of like possession, and then they can enter in and take over and destroy. And maybe, as a matter of fact, you can go there with this. I think they want to destroy every human, every image human of God that's in God's image, you know, because they literally want to kill us, destroy us all. That was because, you know, of course, our Lord was going to sacrifice and become man, you know, and there was no way they were going to worship a man. And then that's why they fell, and they're fallen angels. But I'd like you I'd like to hear your opinion. And one more thing, I don't want to confuse you, but people sometimes come into this world and they're handicapped, and they have mental illness, or they have fate that befalls them. That's a terrible fate, and maybe they're not even alive that long to finish out the rest of their lives. But there's a person who wrote a book called My Soul's Plan, and it talked about taking people and putting them under hypnosis with a trained therapist and going into their subconscious and their past lives, if you will, and then finding out that they decided they chose to come here, and they chose to have whatever fate befell them. You know what I mean? Say that they're handicapped or so forth, so on. I couldn't buy it. I'm like, why am I listening to this? How can this be? I mean, there's no way this goes against everything I've ever believed. But then when you start to think about things for a long time, it takes me a long time to think things like sort of process, if you will. It's like, I can't explain it. Like sometimes it takes me a week to figure something out, or just to think about something through to get any semblance, you know. But I know, I think other people are like that. But I just wanted to get your opinion on My Soul's Plan, if there's any relevance to that, and I would like to get your opinion on the fallen angels and my theory, if you will, or opinion on that. And I really appreciate you letting me talk with you, and you're an awesome dude. In fact, you're my brother. I remember when I was going up that night to Minnesota, and we were on the Hijacker show. And we're just like all brothers in our Lord, and there's just something going on. So no matter how chaos it gets, there's order within our brotherhood. So, you know, and that's about it, Zen. I really appreciate it. So, and your
Hey,
work.
I appreciate you as well as Mike, and yeah, now I know. Since I've talked to you, I know who you are, and we've talked previously, and so yeah, I appreciate you calling in, and I think all of what you said was very relevant. And yes, we're brothers in the Lord, man, and we're here to learn from each other and to encourage one another, and I think you've done that exact thing with the phone call, and I really appreciate that. As far as the fallen angels, I think you're exactly right that they are trying to corrupt the image as they always have, and that the even the current alien abductions and the watching of certain bloodlines and certain lineages and certain people, that has to do with the whole process of their trying to create a fit extension, a human being for them to work through. Not only a human being, but a super hybrid human being, one that would give them the ability to to have certain psychic gifts and certain um, abilities that are superior than normal regular humans, and that even in the Emerald Tablets it talks about how the people that gave themselves up for certain ritual and certain possession, like the elites of the world do today, that these are the ones that became inhabited, possessed, if you will, by these particular interdimensional beings, and that is one of the ways that they have taken over the councils of men and have ruled over humanity in such way, and that the elites, through ritual, that they are involved in exactly what the Emerald Tablets say and what we are talking about now. And I do believe that there is more to the whole predestination and pre-existence. Um, I'm um, I'm a little bit weary as far as speaking about multiple lives and that we are incarnating over and over and over through lifetime and being until we finally get it right. Because that negates judgment, but I do believe that before coming into the flesh, that we had spiritual lives where we were the sons of God, where we were angelic beings, and that before entering into the flesh, that we did have discussions with the Most High, and that we made certain decisions, and that there were certain fates and things that came up as far as what would happen to us in our lives, that we did take on certain families and certain circumstances and situations when embodying into this our current physical being and being born of certain people, and also that certain family members, our children, that they are special souls, that our relationships in this world are not circumstantial or coincidental, that the people that we find involved in our lives and our spouses and things of that nature are very significant. You're welcome to hold on, Mike, and I'll pick it up on the other side. Hold on, everyone. All right, Mike. Wanted to give you a chance to comment on what I said. If you're still there, let me check. No, it looks like he hung up. All right. Well, anyways, I did want to remind everybody that Revolution Radio is the largest listener-supported, commercial-free, and corporate-free entity on the internet and on the planet, and that we do need your monetary support in order to continue doing what we do and sharing all the information that we share on the various topics of discussion, um, and that we appreciate the fellowship and the dialogue and being able to um, talk with you and to keep each other up on the current events of what's up in the world and what is the most relevant as far as topics and discussions, and helping people to prepare themselves and their families for those things that are coming upon the world. I mean, it seems like every day there's just so much information and so much coming to light that it takes all of us as family to work together and to keep each other up with all that is flooding the consciousness of world. Um, Let me see. Mike, are you there? Are you still connected? Okay, I'm not sure because it looks like I still have 630 logged into the conversation, but maybe not. All right. So, anyways, what I was talking about before we went to break, as far as the whole thing, as far as predestination and how our family members and the people that we find in our, as far as our closest relationships, that these are the things that, these are the people that I believe we are star-crossed, is a good word for it, that we are supposed to have in our lives because there's certain work, and that through the love that we share with one another, that we are to work out um, karma and dharma with each other, and that we best are able to in our relationships to get certain things done, to meet certain challenges, and to rise up to um, certain things that we're supposed to do. And so it is my opinion that even the relationships that, there's no coincidences, even the people that we meet in our lives um, that are relevant, are important, that these individuals are to be special and to empower us and to encourage us to fulfill certain aspects of our role and our mission here. Okay, we've got a call, so let's. Okay, caller, did you have a question or a comment, and who are you and where are you calling from?
This is Doc Who calling from Florida.
Hey, Doc, how are you, brother?
Doing well, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you always calling in, brother, and for the kindness of the friendship that we share. And I saw that you were excited that Troy McLaughlin will be joining us at some point to discuss the Saturn death cult. And that, I'm going to be certainly taking some time to study up on this as a topic and discussion, and that so that I can be prepared. And I would appreciate you calling in as well, since you've been focused on this for quite a long time. But let me get you to comment on what I've talked about, and did you have a certain anything that you wanted to share with the audience?
Tons of stuff. I just I want to be in continuity with you with whatever you're focused on, though.
Okay, well, have you heard anything as far as that Apollo 20? Do you know anything about that? And
I've seen the video, or a couple of different videos.
uh-huh.
It's believable. People are going to have to start believing in things whether they think it's real or not, because more than likely it is real. No pun intended there, Israel.
Right. Yeah, I think there's something to it because in the information that has come forth, even like Mike was talking about Bob Lazar and his going public and sharing information. He talked about element 115 a very long time ago, and how these anti-gravity machines, these fallen angelic extraterrestrial vehicles, how they utilize this element 115 to propel their craft and their machines, and that this gave them the ability to to gather speed and to do all the incredible things that they do as far as hovering silently or moving across the skies at like 7 miles an hour, just like creeping, when any other craft that was like you know propelled on the use of gasoline or um, petroleum products, that they would have to maintain a certain speed in order to stay aloft, with the density of the vehicle, the weight, that there was no way that they could creep at 7 miles an hour across the skies, and also to not make any kind of sound. How this element had not even been discovered back when Bob Lazar was talking about this stuff and went public with this information, and that it's only been recent that this element has been added to the whole elemental chart, and that it has become public knowledge and scientifically verified that this element actually does exist and that it has all these unusual properties. Comment, Doc?
Oh, well, I mean, as far as technology and all that sort of thing and physics, they're only letting the general population know about basically institutional physics, and there's still some scientists trapped in that Saturnian box, can't get out of the box, and they don't let secrets out of the box. I mean, in my opinion, the military is in the neighborhood of 3,000 years ahead of what the general populace is aware of. As far as the TR-3B and spacecraft that are interstellar, which that one is, they time jump. They can jump time, so they don't have to worry about the Van Allen radiation belt.
Right. Yeah, and so that would make
move.
Say that again, Doc.
It's not a physical move, as we know, would know an airplane or a boat.
Right. Yeah, and like we've had these other individuals like Laura Magdalene Eisenhower and Andrew Bisaggio and a few others, and they talked about this technology which gave them the ability to just enter into a teleporter and to jump from from here to Mars or wherever they have the other end of this in this teleporter set up, that they wouldn't even have to go through. It's almost like they're connecting wormholes, and so it's not an actual, oh, we have to jump into a craft like like an Apollo craft, or a rocket ship, or even an anti-gravitational, like some kind of UFO technology, like the TR-3B, what you were talking about, that they have technology that gives them the ability to bend space and time and to jump from one place to another, almost like the whole depiction as far as Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, that kind of thing. And so,
I think they've got that technology too.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Dematerialize and rematerialize. And anyway, what an interesting side note is that Massaggio and company, others, including, so they say, Barry Soetoro, their jump room was at 999 Sepulveda Boulevard in California. And you get an elevator, and there's all kinds of lights in there, and the next thing you know, they're standing on Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, 999 is 666 upside down.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Listen, we've got a lot to learn, but I'm shoveling coal into my furnace, and I got my little train going up the hill, and I'm like little Toot. I think I can. So I'm filling my head. The Lord says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." Well, I may perish, but it won't be for lack of knowledge.
Exactly. Well, you certainly seem to be a very well studied individual, um, Doc. And so, as far as the Saturn death cult, these are things that I did not know about, and I apologize. My chat room crashed, and so I was trying to keep up with conversation because there was some very heated discussions going on in the chat room that I had missed, and so trying to catch up a little bit too. And but I'm looking forward to Troy McLaughlin coming on, and another thing that I wanted to mention that next week my friend Carolyn Hamlet, she was talking about when I interviewed her that um, she knew about the whole pre-existence, and that she was shown certain things before coming into her current physical embodiment, and that she has memories of being of being in her spiritual incarnation previous to being born, and that she has this kind of recognition or this kind of remembrance. And I've talked about those kind of things as well in my book Skyfall and some other things. And so it'll be interesting for her to share her perspective next week. And she's going to be also talking about um, uh, in her vision. She also talks about in her experience that her mother and other Illuminati members, that they're taught to astral project and how to leave their bodies. It's sort of like lucid dreaming or remote viewing, and how they're able to, once they do that, that they are able to go to different physical locations, even in like the solar system or on the moon or Mars or things of that nature, and how they can perceive things and get to know things. And she also talked about, and we'll be able to talk about this more with her next week on this, about how the Illuminati, or those that are gifted, like Arizona Wilder speaks about how she was selected because of her psychic abilities for certain tasks, and that because she was gifted in that way, was able to open through ritual certain doors to invite certain different people to come into this reality. We got another caller. Hold on, I'm going to add this caller too. Hello, caller. Where are you calling from? And did you have a question or comment?
I fly to California. This is Tony Lincoln from the chat.
Hey, Tony. How are you, sister? And thank you for calling in. And I was looking forward to your commentary. So, what do you have for us?
Well, we're not allowed to talk about any of the flat Earth stuff, right?
Supposedly, yes, that's what I've been told. I'm just learning about this myself.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Well, I just want to talk about the domes because they're kind of related to that topic, but you don't really have to believe in one thing or the other. So the domes that you see in all the ancient pictures and even Dracula movie, Dracula and Mina Murray ascend into this dome, and they've got the show Under the Dome, which is based in the town they live in. So I started to research this a while back when it was unfathomable to me, of course. But when I started to run into so much resistance of people, it dawned on me that we're already, because the domes are really as above, so below. It's really a sphere, So the below portion is, underneath. And it started to dawn on me that we're already in many of these spheres. So the way I kind of think about Earth is that not that it's flat, but that it's a chunk of land, a rock. If you were to have a big bubble, you could suspend a rock into it and then breathe your breath on that and close it. Life would grow. We'd have bacteria, fungus, whatever growing in that bubble. So to me, it's kind of like that, where, maybe a piece of land in there, whatever. But there's definitely, a sphere, and we have the atmosphere. We can see the sphere because we see the dew point. So we can see the sphere. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So sort of like the way that the celestial heavens, because I've seen the depictions what you're talking about, like the very ancient, like the very ancient depictions of the different, even like there's 10 heavens and 10 hells, and so like as above, so below. There's like different
Yeah,
levels.
like a Shambhala and everything.
Right. Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
so
that also
I watch
plays.
a lot of the flat Earth stuff. That, I mean, to me, it's always just like, it's just a little off or something, Plus, we have to be careful when we have beliefs because, they can be prisons for the mind. I like the movie Dogma. It says, have ideas, but beliefs people die for. So slow
Right.
down.
Well, I think, everything should be studied and that we should never just write off anything until, we kind of have put in our time to know different or better. And that, that has to do with anything. Like when I first woke up to all the 9/11 stuff and the government sponsored
Mhm.
terror and things of that nature. Um,
Mhm.
and my whole world was rocked. I mean, the whole thing, like with doctors and vaccines, not being able to trust
Mhm.
your doctor and your dentist and
Mhm.
the way that they use mercury amalgams, and then put
Right.
poison into your
You know,
teeth. Yeah,
right.
fluoride in the
My
water.
ex-husband, the husband, as I call him, grew up on a military base, and then his dentist, his childhood dentist, ended up going to jail for putting fillings or doing something. I doubt he was doing fillings, but they were putting things in their teeth. They didn't have cavities, they didn't have anything, so he ended up going to jail. So it doesn't make sense for a military doctor to do that because they're using military insurance. That's why I don't buy the story. But with all the implants and stuff like that, with a lot of different people in the military, and he was, from a West Point family, so that's high profile. But my father-in-law, his stepfather, who I was very close to, much like a father to me, was Dr. Jeff King of the 9/11 Truth. And you
Oh,
can look up his videos on, and he was my mentor, and he was like a father to me. And when they first, like I was talking about on chat, when they first came out with, everybody's seen Loose Change by now. It's on, Netflix. But they went through 3 cuts of Loose Change before they released it. And the reason that I have them and I know is because Jeff helped fund them. And he was helping out with it because he was a computer genius. And so, but the very first Loose Change video, it showed the death ray because Dr. King, and he was my PhD, he was a medical doctor. But he became a doctor after the fact because he was an engineer from MIT, and he helped create the first man-made vortex underground at MIT. So he was one of the engineers on this project. And he said it was all connected, the wells going dry. And he was studying the California wells going dry 5 years ago.
huh.
And he said it was all part of this Hoover. I mean, he didn't say this because he didn't know what it was called or the Hoover Dam, but he was saying it was all part of this. He said, the only time I ever heard him cuss. He said, "Nothing death ray," because, he said a bunch of stuff to me that was like nonsense to me. And then he just, nothing death ray, you understand? And I just, 2003, that was in 2003 that he told me that. And it just
Uh-huh.
didn't hit, I just kind of,
Too early.
at that point I had told, yeah, it was too early for me too. And I remember watching the towers and him calling immediately after and saying, no, this is planned. I mean, this is planned. And I was thinking, no, but I remember watching it, and I had just watched a documentary on the biggest Hollywood explosions and the most expensive Hollywood explosions, and they were showing the explosions from the Bad Boys too, where they blow that mansion up. So I watched it like a week before, the demolitions.
Mm.
And I mean, all I could think was, looks just like that documentary I just saw. But there's more to it than that. My dad was on a bus on his way to New York City because he somehow or whatever, heard the voice of God, and God told him the people in New York City are going to need you to go there. And he was on a bus. My mom was in Brooklyn, and 2 days before, I was dreaming about 9/11 and telling people, man, I had this awful dream. I saw this tower. It came falling, coming down, like smashing. There was concrete everywhere. And then I saw, now this is where the, whatever, take it for what you want, but I saw the heads of Muslim leaders rolling down the tower, rolling down it. And then I saw a light shining up behind it, and then I woke up. And I told everybody, because it was so weird. I was going to a bridal shower on Saturday night. And so I told everybody at the bridal shower, and then on 9/11, I had to go back to my friend's house, and that same girl was there, and I was like, do you remember my dream? And she just started crying, like hysterically, because I think it was like supernatural, like phenomenon to her, that she started to cry like she had seen a ghost or something. And that's when I was like, man, this is getting really weird with me. And of course, we know 9/11 is 7/11.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah,
You know,
right. Like I believe 7/11 was like 911 days after, or something of that nature. There was some connection with it that way as
yeah.
well.
Well, sept means 7. You know, octave 8, nove is 9.
Uh-huh.
So sept means 7. Your septum means 7. And so that was very interesting that it was 7/11. But I even found more stuff than that, even related to 7/11. For instance, have you ever seen the show? And I love TV. So, anyways, I work from home. Have you seen the show 4400?
4400?
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's about like these time travelers that incarnate or they get brought back, whatever. Well, throughout the entire show, there's these people that have been sent to help and guide humanity. They all have very different, very specific jobs that they're just going to live out, you know, their destiny. And so they're all snatched and taken from the timeline and then seeded into a new timeline. So the show is based on basically the 144,000, but they call it the 4400. And they all get a disease.
Interesting.
They all get a disease that's a little spiral, and then it's surrounded by dots. And they get it, and they all get sick, and it inhibits their ability to manifest their destiny, whatever it was, whether they could heal people, whether they could start fires, whether they could karate chop criminals, whatever it was. And so they basically, the government gives them this plague, and they don't ever say through the entire show what the plague is. They just describe the symptoms. So when I first started to get sick, this is when I first started talking to Revolution Radio. Actually, it was Heather and Mona who helped me get better the first time. I'm watching this show. I just get hunches, you know, like God or whatever, you know, just watch that whole series again, even though you've seen it 3 times. So I watched it, and
hey,
they
Tony,
don't ever say.
Hold on just a second. We'll be back from break, and then I want to ask you something else about Dr. Judy Woodward's work. So hold on just a second.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. I'm your host, Zen Garcia, and this is Momentary Zen, and I have with me right now online Tony Lincoln from California, and I wanted to ask you about the work, since you brought this up, of Dr. Judy Woods. She wrote a book about how the towers were destroyed, and she spoke about how the cars that were near how they were molten and how they were on fire, and there would be piles of paper, you know, right beside them that weren't even touched and weren't in any way incinerated. And then she spoke about how the concrete was just pulverized. You know, was completely
and there was a
dust.
pyroclastic flow, and pyroclastic flows don't appear in nature, only volcanoes.
Right, and so all these things seem to lend credence to what you were talking about. And then the other thing is that after the death of Nicholas Tesla, they spoke about how he had, in his work, paired like a whole sketch and the whole thing for the creation of a death ray, and how this could be utilized for you know, for like what we saw on 9/11, and that was a test run for this particular device. And so your comment on that?
Yeah, I definitely think they're using a directed energy weapon. And, you know, I think possibly that it's always been here, that weapon is part of the Atlantean technology, possibly, and that they're trying to copycat that technology. So I do think that they're doing something like that. I mean, even like some of the people that were jumping off, they say that the reason that some people were jumping, even though they weren't on fire in some part of the buildings and in other part of the buildings, is because they were being microwaved. So they were jumping because they were on fire, even though they weren't on fire.
Right.
So I've even heard like stuff like that, you know, and that's awful to think about. But just with the 9/11 stuff, you know, I think that because you look at the timeline, and how I put this together was because of this device here in my town. I was actually able to pull it up through some of the Masons here in town by just cross-referencing the site with Masons and some of the people that I knew were involved on the project, and I found the minutes from our Unified School District, one of their meetings, and it mentioned the Boston City bombing before it happened. It calls this school, it's called Golden West. They call it the site when they call all the other high schools by their high school names. And it's part of the Parks and Recreation project, which is worth looking into because they mention this pit. I'm going to build a park over this pit. It's going to be my Hoover Dam. And that's in the pilot of that show. And she's got the identical park behind her in the picture. It's like a national Parks and Rec project. So, and then Amy Poehler from the show Parks and Recreation is the White House spokesperson for Parks and Recreation. So it's not even that far-fetched to think that they're connected. So, but what's really interesting with the 7/11, 9/11 stuff, I was watching this TV show, so I find out at the very end, they show at the very end, because this is all connected to CERN, of course. The very last couple episodes, they're in what they call the theory room. They're trying to find out, they have no idea how to deal with these special people. So they're in a theory room, and they're talking, and just behind the main character, on the corkboard behind them, is a gigantic Akari scabies bug. And it has Big Bang written on a Post-it next to it, a vortex underneath it, and then this other symbol that I don't know what it is, but I see it in music videos, and it's always drawn, kind of looks like a starfish and a circle around it. And that's there too, and it says Big Bang, and it shows the vortex. And then, so what date do you think that pilot aired on for that show? 7/11.
Oh, very
And I just couldn't believe it because the illness that I had was, I was calling it my 4400 rash when I first got it. As a joke, I had no idea what I was in for. As a joke when it first started, I'm like, oh, look, my 4400 rash. We're all laughing. So then I found in a homeopathic book, there was thousands of pages long on Google, and anybody can search this. You can just type in Akari bugs, remedies, natural healing, sulfur, whatever. So sulfur is I always say sulfur is what you have to use to get rid of the bugs from hell. But so the cure for that bug that was in that show, what page do you think it was on? Page 711.
Huh.
So then I added up on my Lincoln 711 calculator that I use with Jesus being 666, and Lincoln is 711. And here in our town with Pyramid Grid, at the corner of that pyramid on the cube is a building, and the address is 711. And I've been saying it's part of this Masonic initiation puzzle that they use for their initiations, and your girl just went and put it all everywhere. I put the cheat sheet out, So I added up his name on my calculator, and his name is Robert Crossy, the man who was called Frankenstein, who supposedly brought these bugs into existence, and his last name, Crossy, of course, comes to 711.
Wow.
So it's just too much. So I do think that there is something bleeding through the veil. And then I think it's interesting that they always find selenium in private tests of chemtrails. They're always finding selenium. Well, after, a year and a half being sick, going to doctors, I found a doctor who actually had them. She had been sick too. She had them too. And all the doctors had a meeting on how to treat me, and what ended up being the treatment was selenium. Well, selenium is what they used in the evolution movie with David Duchovny from the X-Files. That ended up being like what ended up saving humanity was Selsun Blue, And so that's what they ended up having me treat myself with Selsun Blue, which ended up helping me. But it's just really weird, all of the connections, because if you go to the original V series, now in the current V series that they did a little while back, they had the red sky. They were spraying that stuff in the sky to prepare prepare the humans for integration. But in the old V series from the 70s, they spray that stuff in the sky, and it's a reddish-brown color like selenium. They spray that stuff in the sky to kill their amphibious nature.
Oh, wow. Hey, hey Tony, let me ask Doc to get a comment here, because I believe he's still on with us. Doc, are you still there, brother?
All right.
I most certainly am.
Okay, well, I want to give you a chance to comment on what Tony has said, about both the direct energy weapon as well as, the thing with V and because a lot of the Hollywood stuff, they are basically showing us and telling us what is coming, and they do that quite a lot with different programming.
Yeah, 90%, approximately 90% of all science fiction is predictive programming, and it has to be that way. But that's because that's the Masonic creed or the Satanic creed, more appropriately. And if you study,
I agree.
Tony, have you studied up on the Saturn machine?
Oh yes, definitely. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite subjects.
Well, cool. We're on the same page.
Yeah, that is one of my very favorite subjects. In fact, that when I first
why don't you comment on that? What are you talking about? The Saturn machine?
The cube.
Look it up. There's a bunch of stuff, and all you got to do is type in the Saturn machine, and you'll get almost endless material.
Yeah.
But
you have to understand the connection.
You can pick and choose what you want to look at, but.
Well, tell us
in
in general, because we've only got like 15 minutes remaining. So, without me having to look it up and not knowing anything about it, is it like a Stargate machine or like a CERN kind of thing? What?
It is the machine. It's the machine you rage against. It's the rage against the machine. It's a frequency. It's the spectrum coming through like a giant mind control device. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be
like
the vault
the Matrix,
that's keeping us safe. It's the Matrix. Thank you. There you go.
It's like a computer on Saturn, and there's a hole going all the way through Saturn from the hexagon at the North Pole that maintains its shape in the cloud, the hurricane-type clouds that are going around, and they never lose that hexagonal shape, which is the cube. When you draw in the cube, it's there. And then the South Pole is like an eye or an all-seeing eye, and that's where basically where the transmissions come in. It's like a
satellite.
Yeah, exactly. Saturn,
so it's like Skynet.
I don't know if it's like that exactly, but.
And when you get illuminated, that's when you beat the machine. That's when you start to be able to actually control or to override the machine. That's what that is, when you become fully awakened.
Like Neo, when they unplugged him and they showed him what was up and took him into the Matrix and showed him how everybody was like a zombie and how most people were so connected they didn't even understand that
That's
Matrix
right. They're either one of us or
existed.
they're one of them.
Right.
Now, if you look up the ring makers of Saturn, that's another good one to look up. There's a number of presentations on that, and there's a couple of things. And now the rings are all a different color, so that means
and the rings of Venus.
They're what?
The rings of Venus. Hitler was on. I was listening to Hagman a while back, and they were saying that it was said that Hitler had made an agreement with the ring makers for whatever reason. That's a lot of people like the supposed ring makers, is because he put rings on Venus, and Venus controls the love frequency on this planet, supposedly. So that's an interesting story. And the only reason I paid attention to that story is because the Stargate site here was built by people that I know are part of the Nazis. Like where I live, Abraham Lincoln sent the military in to break up the headquarters for all the occults in the world. We have the World Ag Expo here, and that's when they meet during St. John's Day. So just really
anyway,
interesting.
as I was saying, Tony, as I was saying, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I wasn't quite finished with my little speak.
Go ahead, Doc. Finish up your what you were.
The rings, supposedly, from what we know now, one of the rings is crystals, and that's the way they it's like an antenna, and they're transmitting signals and have been for who knows how long, before people.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, even when we didn't have radios or receivers, people were getting the signals, and it affects people's behavior. And then one of the rings is supposedly they're storing souls.
That is what I've heard.
And then if you go to Metatron, the keeper of the Akashic records on Saturn, and he's full of eyes. He's got eyeballs all over him, and there's a good chance if you go tripping, you might see him. But I don't recommend conjuring anything. Because
No.
you're opening a door and or a gate within your own stargate within your own
That's right.
being.
I think that's how we got into this predicament in the first place, right? Man, in their ignorance, brought them forth.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's what the Emerald Tablet
said.
Exactly. And the
Yeah,
Garden of
that's what I
Eden was a stargate they went through to another dimension, Adam and Eve.
That's what I think too.
Oh, that's what
by the serpent.
When I did that, covered that book, the Thracian Chronicles on the Book of Adam and Ua, the portal, the tree, knowledge, good and evil was a portal to this dimension. Hold on, we got another call. Caller, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh yeah, it's Mike one more time.
Hey, Mike, how are you, brother?
Hey, okay. Yeah, for your next show, can you tell us when your show is going to come on next? And then I'd like to offer a topic for your next show.
Sure. You can tell me a topic. I'll be on every Wednesday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. here on Studio B, but next week we have Carolyn Hamlet joining us, and then the week after Troy McLaughlin. So for the next month, I'm booked, with different guests. After that, Josh Peck, and then Wendy Cooper. But then after that, I can do a show on whatever it is. What was the topic you wanted me to look into?
There was a crop circle that was discovered a while ago, and it had to do with a response to Carl Sagan's message with SETI that he put out, and it was on a film of some type that had, male and female, about our height and our weight and what our atmosphere is composed of and what mathematical system we use and so forth and so on. And the aliens.
Can you send me the link on that? Send me any
information. I could do that.
Yeah. I don't know about it, so I'll have to study up on it, but I'll certainly bring it up and share it with the listening audience. It sounds very interesting. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying, and the response was interesting that there's so many people on our planet. We put how many people were on our planet, and then they were telling us about their planet, and it was their planet was, I guess it was either them themselves or their planet was composed of silicon, or maybe they were silicon-based entities, and there was many, many, many more of them on their planet than us, and they looked like aliens. I mean, they had big head and they were kind of short, because on our film we put like our height and sort of what we look like, it's almost like a stick person. But yeah, I'll send you that link. And it was quite interesting, to say the least. I think we need to open up to other possibilities. I mean, seriously. But that was the point I had for your next show.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. It reminds me of that message, the guy that had the whole thing with Brent Woods. He was one of the Army officials that he touched the actual craft up there in Rendlesham Forest, and he saw a bunch of what it ended up being was a binary code, and it was so imprinted on his mind that he wrote it down. It was like 17 pages of zeros and ones, and he didn't know what it was. But just recently, somebody that understands and is able to convert the binary that he wrote down from his vision, converted it, translated it, and it turned out to be a message, something about a specific parallel, and it was a message about the extraterrestrial presence, the fallen angelic presence here on the planet. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's coming. It's not the one where they decoded the disc, the computer disk, like the with the binary code. It's not that one. And then there was a picture of the alien himself, and it was a message that somebody had to decode. It wasn't that one, was it?
No, this was just a bunch of zeros and one. It wasn't a crop circle. It was a vision that I believe the guy was a staff sergeant, and he was there when the Rendlesham Forest incident happened up in the UK at the military base there. There was a UFO that was sighted that hovered above the nuclear facilities there, and that it came over a series of a couple nights. But anyways, at one time, one of the craft had landed in the forest, and he actually was able to touch it. And when he touched it, he had imprinted into his mind all the series of zeros and ones, and it was this binary code, and he didn't understand what it was saying or what it meant, but it was so imprinted on his mind that he wrote it down in his notebook. And it was like 30 years later that he made it available to somebody that was able to decipher the binary code, and it came out. It had a message associated to what he saw. There's a whole Ancient Aliens series that talks about this, and I'll try to, before the next show, find that particular show so that I can post the link in the chat room, and that way y'all can see what I'm talking about. But it was 30 years before he could get that message decoded and shared with the world.
Yeah. And Zen, make sure you get into mediation. You know that word, mediation. God mediates to us, to communicate, into our hearts and our minds and our physical world. It's mediation, see? And also, God might be called all. God might be all light. What is light? CERN doesn't know what light is. CERN only messes around with particles. CERN does not know. Nobody knows what light is. Light has key attributes that are hidden, and it takes infinite knowledge to even figure out what light is. You see, but mediation is important. Mediation, or if they are EBTs or if they are aliens of some types, yes, they will mediate. They will attempt to communicate in whatever language, that we might be familiar with, the zeros and ones. That's an interesting way. So that being said, remember mediation, your next show. Mediate. How does God choose to mediate? How does he come to us? See? How does he come to our heart? How does he come to our mind? How can we be open to all this great knowledge and so forth and so on? That's going to be your next show. Okay?
All right, brother. I will cover it. I just want to thank all three of you, Doc and Tony and Mike, for calling in and sharing your insightful dialogue with me. I really think that you added a great deal to the show, and that you, are sharing very important topics and making very important commentary. So I thank you. Encourage each one of you to call in again at a later point. And definitely, Doc, you'll
round
sure have to
tables
call
are
in.
good.
Yeah, next, when Troy calls in 2 weeks. But let me give each one of you 1 minute to share final commentary with the listening audience. We'll go to Tony first, and then we'll go to you, Doc.
Okay, thanks for having me on. And just everybody, I would recommend to look into the Jehovah's Witnesses being beamed to Saturn during the rapture, and then listen to the Stevie Wonder song called Rapture from In the Key of Life.
I'm definitely going to check out that
Saturn.
show, that 4400 you were talking about.
Oh, it's great. You'll enjoy it. Yeah, you will. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you. I think it's the first time we've met, but I definitely will keep Wednesdays in mind. I'll try to call in for sure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All right,
and I apologize, Doc, too, for cutting you off. I just get so excited. There's a lot of soul around to talk to this stuff too, so when I get on the air with you guys.
That's okay.
And no offense taken. We appreciate you so much, Tony. And all right,
I appreciate
Doc.
you guys too. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sister. Doc,
right,
and then we'll go to Mike. God bless.
Mike, oh yeah.
Like everybody.
Well, oh, is there two mics?
Yeah, we'll go to Doc first, and then we'll go to you, Mike. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay.
Everybody needs to look into Shungite, and you can look into that on cosmicreality.net.
All right, Mike, final comment?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, Peter, or what's his name, the singer said, Zen as it was, in 10 Years Gone, the song 10 Years Gone, he said, Zen as it was, and then again it shall be. So go ahead and check it out.
All right, hey, I appreciate you guys, and thank you for tuning in. We'll catch everybody next week. Carolyn will be joining us then. God bless all. Good night.